Welcome to the Power of Lifting podcast. I'm EricCafferty, owner of the Mecca Gym. I am a strength and conditioning coach and a contest prep specialist. The focus of this podcast is to dive into the mindset and the drive of people who have done incredible things with their lives.
Everyone, welcome to the Power of Lifting podcast. We are on episode 10. We have hit double digits.
This is a big marker.
Yeah, it's a big marker. With a phenomenal guest to do it with us. This, ladies and gentlemen, Kaycee Cafferty. The queen of the Mecca, as I've heard her been called.
I would argue the best guest,
yes,
but I'm biased.
A little bit. For any of you who don't know and have not paid attention, EricCafferty, being the same last name, is the husband to Kaycee Cafferty.
We are, in fact, married for almost 8 years, as a matter of fact.
Definitely amazing. Not his sister.
Yeah.
Has that been said before?
No.
Oh, I was going to say.
No.
Fantastic. Well, Kaycee, thanks so much for being on with us.
Yeah,
thank you for having
me. We've been around some other couples that be like, oh my gosh, you've been married for 8 years. It's like people think that that's a really long time to be married or something.
Right.
I don't know. Doesn't seem like that long to me, but
right. Well, time flies when you're having fun.
Absolutely.
I suppose.
Right on. No, this is awesome, and it's definitely something that hasn't happened, obviously, before. We're only hitting 10 episodes, but we have husband and wife here with that relationship dynamic. I mean, we've had clients of yours, Eric. We've had fellow coaches, stuff like that, but this is kind of cool to dive a little bit deeper into you as EricCafferty, and also get to know Eric.
All the things that make Eric Eric.
That's right. Now you guys get to hear all the dirt.
All the dirt. Okay, well, I think, so during this podcast, we'll just kind of talk. I think we talk a little bit more about Kaycee. Absolutely. Why you're so cool, things that you've done in your life, kind of goals that you have, and then maybe both kind of the relationship that you guys have. And then we also, Eric, you reached out to Instagram and asked people some questions that we could read. That's right. Questions from the members, the gram, that we can also go into as well. But Kaycee, let's get to know you a little bit. What do you do?
I sell real estate for work. I do that for work.
Came just from that,
yeah. Have 2 kids and mother them, 2 sweet little boys.
Don't exaggerate too much on the sweet part.
They're handfuls, but they are both very, very sweet.
What are their ages?
3 and 5.
3 and 5. So they're
2 little boys.
Wild.
Yes.
They are. They're the best.
Yeah. Walker's in jiu-jitsu, the 5-year-old, and he comes home and teaches the 3-year-old all the moves. And then the 3-year-old does his best to beat up the 5-year-old.
That's right. Is it like a playful, like he's genuinely teaching, or he just wants to beat up on his brother?
He's a good teacher, but it's genuinely like WWE on our living room floor. Yeah. It's amazing.
He shows a lot of restraint though, with like he doesn't just unleash it. The 3-year-old unleashes his inner beast. And there's no remorse.
Yeah, he's nuts, but
just screaming about it.
Yeah.
Well, that's phenomenal. You got to do what you got to do to win the battle.
That's right.
That's awesome.
It's fun.
It's sweet. And so, kind of before this all happened, before you became a real estate agent and stuff like that, what were you into? Were you an athlete growing up?
Yes. I played volleyball and ran track in high school, and then I got a scholarship to run track at Wichita State, and I did the heptathlon at Wichita State.
Oh, dang.
And then from there, I had a pretty bad injury. I tore my hamstrings and gracilis. And so I ended up, a little mad at myself because trying to push through that and still keep my goals the same was hard. And just like sitting back watching everyone else running and they're getting better, and I wasn't able to continue to push myself just to sit. You have to let it heal.
Oh, and of course. Both hamstrings, you said?
My one hamstring on my left leg. And so I ended up I decided to go back and just go to school at Boise State. And then I finished at Boise State.
Which is a good thing she did move back, because
yes,
Then I met Eric.
So there's the. We'll dive deeper into that. That's a membership question, an Instagram question. How did you guys meet? But was that a really difficult thing for you to kind of have to feel? Were you felt forced to stop? Did you feel forced that you had to stop and not continue on with that?
I wouldn't say I felt forced. There was quite a culture shock being there. I was all alone. I didn't know anybody there when I got there, and it was fine. I actually enjoyed all the friends I made, and it was a fun college experience, but I felt kind of lost, I would say, after that happened, because, the last 10 years of my life had been just training for track, and it was like that happened, and what am I gonna, like, who am I without
an identity thing?
Yeah,
Sure.
I didn't know, like, what do I do now? Because school was always just a side note. I didn't really care about school at all.
Right.
So
I went to school to run track.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, they just made me go to class. So so that was a hard identity crisis.
That'd
somewhat.
Be so hard,
yeah, but then I just figured I'd go home and regroup and figure my life out from there.
Jeez.
And then I got to listen to her talk about how she should run club track for the next 5 years after that. So, I mean, I think when you're forced to stop something that you've been passionate about your entire life,
working
basically,
so hard for
it leaves a big void. And I would, argue that that's a big reason why she got into competing in figure when she did. Is just because she was kind of looking for something to compete in, especially when you've competed at such a high level. I mean, getting a scholarship to a good D1 track program is a big deal.
It is a big deal.
And, that means that you're, top tier elite in the genetic gene pool. Obviously, you have some God-given talent, but, you also develop a work ethic too to, quote unquote, play at that level. So I think in moving back, she was definitely, when I met her, she was training to do a triathlon, and I was like, what are you doing?
That's amazing.
I had it in my mind that I was going to be a professional triathlete, even though I went from being a sprinter mostly and
to
jumper
the distance game.
to, well, I mean, what else do you do as like an adult in competitive things? They only have distance stuff.
No, that's totally fair. My wife, she was a track athlete as well, and afterwards she's like, well, yeah, what do we do as an adult? Like, I could pick up a basketball, go play at the park anytime.
Yeah.
It's just not the same.
You're kind of weird if you just go and do 100-meter sprints or set up
Just
the
by
hurdles
yourself,
and just go do 100-meter hurdles by yourself, and it's really hard to time yourself, like, it's not
You're
a
the person
thing.
that the school administration has to come up and be like, ma'am, can you please exit the track facility?
You don't go here.
Right.
But anyway, it's just interesting. At the same time, after she moved back, she's still, even when I met her, like, I met you, like 6 months after you moved home?
So pretty
yeah,
soon.
so it's like October of, 2010?
Yes.
And you moved back, that spring. So, I mean, her hamstrings still weren't healed yet, or her hamstring wasn't healed yet. So, the people at college she was going to didn't exactly do a great job with rehab. They kind of just let her flounder a little bit. So, I mean, I think getting her on that and watching her lift when we first met was cute. Of course, her watching me run was also
that was also pretty cute.
Like a joke, but and so I think after we started dating, she got into lifting a little bit more seriously, and I taught her, I guess, the bare minimum of what she would need to at least know to to start like working towards that. And I think you wanted to compete like pretty soon after that, and I was like, no, you should wait.
You wouldn't let me. I was like, what, am I not good enough?
Not good enough.
He's like, no.
No, it just like, it takes time, and that's not something that you want to rush, especially that's the thing that most people don't realize with competing specifically is like, you don't want to just train for 6 months and get on stage like you can, but it's better to wait typically.
Be happier with yourself, I think.
So
So what was that like, Kaycee? Then when did you was it the drive to compete that got you to go into bodybuilding, or what was that like?
Yeah, I definitely needed something that fit with my personality. And there's options for adults as far as running marathons and doing triathlons, but it just didn't fit with what I wanted to do. And I was introduced to the world of competing, and I saw a lot of women that were competing in figure, and I just liked that lifestyle. And it was something that I had never been exposed to. And the more exposure I got to it, the more I was like, I should have lived this life when I was competing in track, because I would have done so much better had I known how to lift weights, had I known how to eat better to actually fuel my body. It doesn't have to be a diet necessarily, but I did not fuel my body adequately at all. And,
if you don't know, you don't know.
Most high school and collegiate athletes. It's like they feed you a shake after you're done, and that's like it, and go eat, you know?
Yeah, it was mind-blowing. Well, and I mean, in college, when you're doing college sports, especially for women, then they're afraid of you putting on weight when you go to college. So what they say,
Hashtag
you know,
freshman 15.
Exactly. And the whole thing is like, well, you need to eat healthy. So we're going to give you a protein shake and fruit snacks after your track workout.
Oh my goodness,
and then
this is real.
You need to,
dude,
and then you need to, you know, don't eat anything bad for you. Well, what does that mean? Because I would go back.
Can you quantify what's bad for you?
Yeah.
Right.
I would go back to our food hall and eat a salad and drenched in ranch dressing, and I would have whatever other fried snacks were out there, you know?
Yeah.
They had quite a large selection of food, so it was just this thing, well, I mostly ate salad, so that's good for you, right? And had like no protein. I probably consumed about 30 grams of protein a day when exactly. Yeah.
Being a heptathlete, nonetheless, you're not just doing one or two events.
Exactly.
That's a lot.
There's no consistency. No one tells you anything. The guy who was a nutrition guy for the college told me to go eat cereal because when you look at the side of the box, there's so many vitamins in cereal.
Freaking
really?
Get out of here.
So I ate a lot of cereal to get those vitamins.
That chump was like, I love cereal, so I'm going to tell everyone else
exactly.
it's great.
Have you seen all the micronutrients on the side of the box?
Well, it's like the side of the box, the whole side of the box.
Must be good for you.
Must be good.
Yeah.
I mean, I certainly.
I wish that I had known.
Yeah.
You know, even just the stuff I learned a year after in track, because it would have, I don't know, could have played out differently. But started
Hindsight,
competing,
right?
yeah, and it was, I really loved it. I got really into it. Really, just it was something to take on and a new goals I could set, and it's not easy, and I like things that challenge me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think one of the things, the powerlifting podcast, what we talk about is that mindset. And I think all of the guests we've had on is they want to have something that challenges them. So like you want to go through life and make it easy. Those, like the people who really succeed and find fulfillment in life is because they went through difficult things. I know Eric talks about that all the time on his Instagram. I mean, today it was a throwback Thursday to you competing, which is a super cool post. But it was like focus, giving 100%, no regrets, that kind of stuff. So it's cool to see how the people who have the similar mindsets found each other.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting shift going from like competitive sports like track to bodybuilding, because it is not the same. You know, bodybuilding, although competitive sports such as track should be treated more like bodybuilders treat it, being a 24-hour-a-day gig, you know,
just like Kaycee, I think, was saying,
bodybuilding, you know, it's so much of it is just discipline. You know what I mean? It's not like, you know, are you going to go and run X amount of time, or, you know, run X amount of speed, or, you know, you don't have to lift certain amount of weights per se, but it's just the discipline, the all-encompassing discipline of following your nutrition guidelines, following your training guidelines, doing all of the activity that's required of you. And it's like a daily routine, a daily grind that's different. Even from my own experience playing hockey, it's like, well, show up to practice, fuel yourself outside of that. And I did obviously better than most with nutrition. Well, maybe not so obviously, but I was really hardcore into monitoring nutrition when I was, playing competitive sports prior to bodybuilding. But, it just presents a really different challenge for people because the expectations are different, and all of the mindset that goes into you're not just pushing yourself training hard for a couple hours a day. You're having to prepare and be disciplined with your nutrition, and so that element is a completely new thing for people to take on. Right.
Interesting. So what was it about, so for the layman like me, it wasn't bikini, it was figure. And why was that?
Well, when I started, bikini wasn't. It was just being introduced to the natural federations. I mean, they'd probably been doing
introduced into the NPC too.
Okay, yeah.
Just bikini was a new division, and so like the bikini girls now, especially at the NPC level, are basically close to the physique that figure was circa 2010.
Interesting. Okay.
Like it has come so far. If you take my example of this is Erin Stern. She's a former college track athlete that like Kaycee actually, resembles a lot with their physique. But regardless, she won Miss Olympia figure back when Kaycee was competing in figure. And then fast forward to last year, she competed as a IFBB Pro bikini. And her physique, she's actually leaner and arguably more muscle in certain areas now compared to then. So it's just the evolution of the division. People, that haven't been competing for 10 plus years don't really know.
It's only been like 6 years, okay? Not 10 for me.
Well, it's been about 10 since bikini really came to the scene.
So for everyone, it's not like it's new via history. This is like a new division.
Yeah, well, newer compared to, obviously bodybuilding's been going on since the 60s, 70s, 50s even. But, bikini is super, super new, and it has come leaps and bounds. So when she was first getting started, if you had any muscle at all, it was like figure. And especially in the natural federations, we didn't really have an NPC show here back then. And so for drug tested feds, we had a big NGA show here. Like first of all, bikini wasn't even a thing in that federation just yet. And if it was, they wanted,
very
essentially
small, very petite, and very soft.
Essentially,
so really
like
you could just hop on stage.
Essentially, girls that look decent in a bikini just get on stage. Softer, not much muscle. Like if you had shoulder caps, they were like, "Hey, you better go do figure." You know what I mean? So, like, she just did not fit the mold of bikini at all. Yeah, just with her genetics. So, and for drug tested figure, she actually fits that mold perfectly. Nice. So that was kind of, I think, and bikini just really didn't appeal back at the time to her. I don't know. I mean, you can talk more about that.
Yeah, but. It's definitely having more exposure to the NPC and the bikini competitions that they're doing now. Then it's much more competitive. It just wasn't competitive at that time. And so it was growing.
None of the girls looked like great, not with a lot of muscle. Like now, obviously, the amount of muscle that she carries now is actually about right for bikini and in the NPC. But
probably not in...
No, and if she wanted to compete in drug-tested feds, she'd still do figure for sure. You know what I mean? Gotcha. It's totally changed. The divisions have. So... like now, even though she does have, wide capped shoulders and she has a lot of muscle, she'd actually fit pretty good in the bikini division as opposed to figure. Whereas before it was like, bikini just didn't even, like, it wasn't it didn't.
It's
appeal.
come a long way now, and it's much more competitive, and I think that it's.
Yeah.
I don't know, it'd be more appealing, but.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So is that, do you guys think it's going to continue? Like, will the bikini become the figure? Then we'll like add another thing that.
I hope not. They just added wellness. Like, I hope that they keep bikini about where it's at right now. But it'll continue to be refined and get better. And,
Sure.
you know, the athletes are always getting better and better. Waists are getting smaller. Glutes and shoulders are getting bigger, you know, but it's not over the top. And it's the same thing with, like, the conditioning. You know, a lot of people think that you need to be softer to do bikini, but dude, I mean, that's not really the case. You just don't really flex, so you don't really show the striations and stuff. But to be competitive in bikini, you have to be shredded. So it's not like it's easy from a diet perspective, you know.
Right on.
So
how many shows did you end up doing?
I did 2 or 3 shows a year from 2012 to 2014. So
Okay.
I think I did like 8 or 9.
Wow.
something
Like that.
Yeah.
So it was a good chunk of time where you were living this lifestyle and you were happy with it. And
Yeah. And in 2014, that was when I did the last show, and I got my pro card, and then I did a pro show.
Yeah.
And
So she won 2 pro cards that year. She won IFPA was the federation at the time. Now that's the IPE, and WNBF. They kind of so she won
Acronyms.
IFPA.
that's a whole lot of
That's
crap to get into
Google that
that we
just
don't need
for
to
the
do.
record, the natural feds, like historically speaking, have been a mess with, like, there's too many different ones. They're not all like unified. Everybody's kind of like, anyway.
Put on your own show.
Yeah, it's kind of a mess. So, you know, people that are good end up competing in, you know, the big shows for all of them, you know, and they kind of, the heads of each federation kind of let the top athletes kind of float around, even though you're not supposed to, but they just want those top athletes in their shows, period. But so that's a huge problem. We're not going to get into that.
Yeah, that's a whole
That's-
other can of worms.
Yeah, but that's why I
Another
like
day.
the NPC and IFBB. Like, even though there's, you know, you're going to be competing against non-natural, you know, and enhanced people, like, that's just part of it. You just assume that if you're going to compete in that federation, you just know that going in. You either, you know, partake in that or choose to not. And if you choose to not, you just know that, well, I'm going to be,
It's gonna be what it is.
yeah, it's going to be what it is. So no knock on them for that, but, you know, for figure, just competing in the drug tested feds, it's just, you know, you definitely have more of an opportunity at the big stage, like the national level. So yeah, she won in the IFPA and then the NGA. So she won 2 pro cards and then went and did a pro show, the Mr. and Mrs. Minnesota. That was in 2014. That was your last one.
Wow.
And she did really, really well. I mean, at that show, it was her 3rd show of the year. She was competing against some of the best figure pros. Really, actually, that show had the best figure pros in the country naturally at that time.
I found so many women that it was such an honor to be on stage with them. Just, I mean, their physiques blew mine way out of the water at that point. And
I wouldn't say that. It was just, you know, she was, how old were you? You were 22, 23.
Oh, wow.
And these were, you know, 35 to 45-year-old women that just had a lot more years to be able to refine. And, you know, the big thing is, like,
Still
especially,
up there with them.
especially
shows
at
how
that
badass they
age, it's just super hard to get lean enough. You know what I mean? It's super hard to have that development, that graininess that you get as you age.
Sure.
So, you know, she was lean. It was just, you know, these women were like peeled to the bone, a few of them.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, like, I think Stephanie Casella won that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was like
freak.
my idol for.
Oh, really?
So, I mean, I shouldn't say was. I haven't been in that world in a while. So, but
She
for a
was a
little
freak.
while, yeah, she looked incredible.
We're gonna have to look her up.
Yeah. And yeah, just her getting ready for shows. I mean, when you looked at her, you could tell she was very, very shredded. but she'd get on stage and her muscles were just beautiful. And like she just had such great shape. And
did you place like 5th or 6th that show?
I think I was 6th or 7th. I don't remember.
6th
I was middle of the pack.
Yeah, I mean, but to place, middle of the pack at your first, it was like one of the most competitive pro shows in the country. Sounds like, yeah. So to like be on that level so early on is a super big deal. I mean, like, comparatively, like I would have no business against the top 10 natural pro bodybuilders at the time, I was the same age, and there's like, I wouldn't have even belonged, whereas she definitely belonged on stage, and you could see that the potential was there. It's just the years, the time needed to go by.
Right. And so I know this, but what was the reason that it ended?
Well, I was getting ready to start the next prep, and lo and behold, I found out I was pregnant.
So that's not going to help with prep.
So my prep was really hard, and I couldn't figure out why I was having such a struggle to lose weight.
That makes sense.
And then I just felt all over the place. Hormones were not working as they normally did. And
understandable,
I went to work to rule out pregnancy, and turned out that there was a baby in that belly.
Wow. Now you got a little jiu-jitsu monster.
Whoops.
So.
Right on. Do you, I know a lot of people have thoughts about Eric doing this, but do you have any thoughts about returning to the stage?
Possibly. It's a possibility. I mean, being part of the Mecca definitely gives me a lot of motivation to want to. It's just getting everything lined up and right, which it's never going to be perfectly lined up and right, but it's really, I think I've had it in the back of my mind for a couple years now, but it's always turned out whenever I would start to feel like I need to live the lifestyle again more a little bit more consistently and strictly, then I just had other priorities that I felt would take precedence.
Sure.
And so I've always been working out, and I've always been lifting, and relatively speaking, I eat pretty healthy. The last couple of years, I wouldn't track things very rigorously or anything like that, but we've maintained a healthy lifestyle, and that was really what was important.
That you would have to like completely flip a switch to get back into. It would just be a little bit of life changes, and
it's just adjustment and making sure that I make my entire lifting program a priority. I think it's a running joke here that Eric would give me a program, and I would cut out all the things I don't like.
Edit here.
So I'm not going to do calves. I'm not going to do abs. I'm not going to do things, which Eric just loves training his wife, who's stubborn.
That would be fun. It would be fun. That's awesome. Okay, let's just go back though, because I think this is definitely a question I wanted to ask multiple times. So what is the actual story of how you guys met?
Well, actually, we were introduced by my sister. Kaycee and my sister were in an anatomy lab together. And I was taking A&P at Boise State at the same time, and we actually met to study in the Boise State Library for the first time.
I need to pause you for a second. Shanna was my lab partner, and Shanna kept telling me when we'd go to our labs that I need to meet her brother. And I did not picture Eric looking the way he did. And I told her I was not interested.
To be fair, she's my half sister. We have different dads. Yeah.
So she's difference in look.
She's half Chinese, and she's like, 5'4".
You make me sound really bad. But I imagined a very short,
Well, people
No,
have
And
their
I'm
preference,
tall.
right?
I'm a tall girl.
Yes, so it just makes sense.
Yeah.
That is hilarious.
So she was not really interested. And then,
Shanna told me that we have to go study.
Okay.
And
Just a typical.
her and I need to go study for this test. I lived in Boise, right by Boise State, so we went to the library, and I walked in there and saw this really handsome guy sitting next to Shanna, and I thought for sure that he was her husband. And then she introduced him as her brother. And
You're like, wow, this is
like,
not what I expected.
yeah. So yeah, anyway, kind of that, I don't know, love at first sight is kind of a stupid concept, but
But
yeah.
also true.
so
But-
cheesy.
I mean, yeah, and the thing is, like, it's not like, for me, it's never been like all about looks. You know what I mean? Like, there's
so much more to life and
yeah,
people than just
yeah,
looks.
and it's like, there's there's a lot of pretty girls out there that are, you're just not going to be compatible with. But after talking with her, studying and things like that, she was like, so sweet, super innocent, so I thought. And but yeah, no, she was just like the sweetest, kindest person. And
then you got to know me.
and I got to know her, and that was even more so the case. But yeah, when we left the library that day, I purposefully did not give her my phone number. I did not exchange contact information at all. I had, I told my sister, I'm like, I got to stay away from her because I'm going to marry that one, and I don't know if I'm ready for that commitment.
That's intense.
And so, a few weeks later, I ended up, basically getting stood up for a date. And then I'm like, whatever, I'm so sick of dating. I was like, I'm so glad that happened, because that's all I needed to just be
a little push. You just needed
to
a
just
little
be
something.
so through with all of the crap. I mean, single people out there, I mean,
I was
it's just
so
like-
offended by the way that you did not ask me for my number. I was waiting for it and ready to give it, and the question didn't come, and I was so offended.
Oh,
and
no.
She messaged me on Facebook and was like, by the way,
You
here's
forgot
my
my number? You forgot to ask for it.
Yeah.
So
But here it is.
Here it is.
No,
Wow.
she did not phrase it like that. She was like, oh, by the way, here's my number if you need it for anything. And it was like,
you need to study.
hint,
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Be more clear
I'm like,
than that.
oh man, this is going to be trouble. But
And
yeah, so I ended up messaging her, and then we, of course, met down at the, Boise State gym to work out, because the first time you get together to work out, she's like, hey, do you want to go for a run to warm up? And I'm like, at the time I didn't even know what cardio was, well, I did,
Wait, sorry,
but like
run?
I'm like,
His cardio was on the elliptical only.
yeah, like, or the bike, like, it was like, I was, way into bodybuilding at that point. Like, I had no interest in running or, any sort of outdoor cardio.
Right.
And she took me for a run to warm up for lifting in the rain. And I was wearing basketball shoes, of all things. And by the end of the run, I couldn't feel my feet, and I was miserable. She ran me into the ground, but I had to like keep a straight face on.
Were you testing him, or were you just going for
No,
a
she
warm-up
was just
run?
legitimately doing
I
a warm up
just did
run.
my
I almost died.
typical. I always did a 3-mile run that was from. They had it mapped out from Boise State's campus
on the green belt.
on the green
Oh,
belt.
okay.
Yeah, and so you ran to this bridge, and it was 1.5 miles to the bridge and then back. And
So you
so
ran
we
to
were
the
just
bridge
doing that, and it. I will say, I didn't expect him to be able to keep up, because he was a little. He was a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
He's much larger than most of the guys that I would typically run with, and
Yes, probably.
I wanted to just see. I knew it was a little further than what you probably were expecting.
Oh, yeah.
There were little tests.
So a little bit.
But good on you, sir.
And
You
I
did
wanted
it.
to run in front of him,
Yeah.
because I'm competitive like that, and I always need to beat whoever's.
Yeah,
Sure.
just ask her
Around.
who outran who last weekend, though.
It's-
Uh-oh.
My ears were cold.
Because the ears affect you.
They do.
But yeah, anyway, we ended up lifting afterwards, and then, I went back to my place, made her the best thing that I cook, which is salmon. It's delicious. Yeah. My bomb salmon recipe. And then my dog Riddick really liked her and started herding her around my house, and so I was like, oh yeah, she's meant to be.
Yeah. Riddick knows, so it's good to go.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Got the clear from the dog.
Yeah, right. That's the most important, right?
And then our next date, we went out to all you can eat sushi.
And then you proved who the real champion is.
I tried to not eat like a complete fat kid, and then come to find out she did not know what was an acceptable amount of sushi to eat either. So
I ate a lot. Everyone was like,
oh yes,
she's still going.
But yeah, I'm like, oh, this is gonna work out. She can eat too. This is good. Like,
that's amazing.
You can't, like, one of you can't be into food and the other not. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like you gotta, like, luckily, and she hadn't been introduced into real sushi at that time. It was just like California rolls, fried rolls, like tempura. But now she's been indoctrinated into sashimi and the whole jam.
I think I had 5 rolls to myself and 2 hand rolls, and I was like, I should stop so he doesn't think I'm fat.
But it's so good.
Yeah.
And he had his jaw on the floor that I kept ordering.
Just like, dude, you're paying.
I don't think my jaw was on the floor. I think I was more so excited. I'm like, oh, good. She's not like, I mean, I used to go and crush like 12 rolls. Like it was, not a big deal.
Sure.
I mean, I still could. I just don't anymore because anyway, hashtag goals, right?
Right.
But, I don't want to go and like be eating for hours at a restaurant and have her just sitting there like,
Sure.
just hanging out, not eating. Like, nobody likes that. Like, I want a woman who can eat. You know what I mean?
That's right. It sounds like it happened. That's awesome. So you met, married. We're all so grateful for that. When and how did Eric kind of introduce you to the fact of opening a gym, or was it something you guys came together with?
We had been talking about it since the time we met, actually. I distinctly remember we'd been dating for probably 5 or 6 months, and we were walking around your neighborhood, and Eric was talking to me about what his future goals were, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember him saying that he wants to open a gym, and he had this vision of what it would look like. And I remember thinking that that's really scary to dump everything, your whole life into it, but that if anybody could do it, it would be him. And if anyone can gain traction just with other people believing in him, it was him. And he had the work ethic, and I think that's what made me really, really start to fall in love with him, was how he handled himself and how far ahead in the future he would look for what his goals were. And he always pursued and accomplished his goals. And if they weren't yet accomplished, you could see they were coming. And so it actually gave me a lot of motivation listening to him about, like, maybe I should think about what I want to do. Like, maybe I should have that. Maybe I should set higher goals for myself, because I can do that. I can attain stuff too.
Sure.
And it was, just the way that his mind works was very, very appealing to me. And I know I always question everything and it drives you nuts, but I really because I just want to know how it works. Like, how, what do you think?
Right?
Like, what are you thinking right now? Because it's things that my mind never comes up with.
Right.
And so, yeah, I don't know. That was one thing that really sealed the deal for me, was listening to him talk and his passion and his pursuit of his passion.
That's pretty incredible. Because I mean, the question is, how did you guys decide to own a gym? What are like the obstacles you faced? And personally, like Eric and I, we just drove a ton of hours together, so like I learned a lot. But so was that process an extremely difficult one, or was it one that like you made the decision, I'm more in love with you and Eric and you as well because you guys did this together and move on, or was it something that tested the marriage, tested the relationship, tested the future?
I wouldn't say, I mean, I don't know, speaking for myself, I wouldn't say it tested our relationship at all. I don't know. I mean, obviously it has its difficulties with, I mean, the constant struggle, you know, I'd say is just the time demands. So when it was all kind of starting, I think, you know, we had been looking at, you know, either buying a gym or opening a gym or something, you know, something along those lines, just because that was, you know, I mean, I have a lot of goals in the back of my mind, but that was kind of like the first step for me, you know, having the gym, you know, and that's the thing, like a lot of people think that, hey, you know, that's your goal. Like you've done it. Like the gym is so low on the totem pole as far as like my overall goals go that it wasn't really, it's just a step. And it's not that it's not a big deal. It is a big deal to me to, you know, to have this gym, to have, you know, a great staff and all that stuff. But, you know, it's just the beginning, really, you know. So I wouldn't say that it really tested our relationship, because I mean, I knew this was going to happen. I knew that.
Well, it's talked about very early on, too.
It
sounds like.
And it's not that it was her vision, but the really cool part about it was she was super supportive, you know, no matter what. And I think that she, you know, always believed in me a little bit more than I believed in myself, which, you know, for me, I mean, it's not that I need the support or anything like that. I would say I don't necessarily need that, but you know, there is something to be said about, like, you know, she, like, you know,
I'm depending on you.
Well, no, just having other people like believe in you and other people tell you, like, you know, you can do it and things like that. And it's like I said, it's not that I like need that affirmation or anything like that,
but it definitely boosts you for sure.
Yeah, but it's like, okay, you know, because you're always going to second guess whenever you're doing something that's a big move or, you know, going out of your comfort zone. Like, you're always going to feel uncomfortable. And so having her there, just, you know, even to do little things for me or to, you know, be supportive was, you know, a huge difference maker, like in the whole process. Now, you know, it's like, you know, a lot of people say like, oh, I couldn't have done it without you. Like, could I have done it without her? Like, yeah, but it wouldn't be the same. You know what I mean? Like she definitely took, you know, helped me realize my vision as a much, you know, it's just a lot better for her being there, you know, and she did help a ton. Like, even though it's, you know, the gym's always kind of been my thing, so to speak, like I was still training people, you know, tons and tons of hours each week. And so, I mean, she did a ton for me when we opened this place up. Like, there's no way that, you know, I could have done it by myself. And, you know, thank God.
Definitely not in the timeline.
No, definitely not in the timeline, because, you know, we found out that we were pregnant with Walker, and I was like,
that was when
that's the straw that broke the camel's back.
We're finding a place, and we are getting this going.
Yeah, I just didn't want to be, you know what I mean? I like had places that I needed to be in order, you know, at certain phases, and I'm like, man, we're having a kid, we're starting a family, like I need to strap my big boy pants on and quit dicking around, basically. You know, because I had been kind of like looking for places and getting into it and things like that, and I found out she was pregnant. It was like serious business. I was up, you know, all hours of the night working on stuff, and you know, that was like the kick in the ass that I really needed to get moving.
More so just that, you know, he was happy and content, well, not content, but he was happy doing what he did. He had a ton of clients that he was training, but the time that took, I mean, that's always been our if we have any fights or any anything come up, it's because we need to spend more time together.
Pretty much.
And it was okay at the time when we didn't have kids, because I have my stuff and he has his stuff, and then we come together and we
when you can enjoy it. Yeah.
And it was good, but I wasn't really ready for I did not feel ready for kids, and I was like, I need you and your support too. So let's open a gym and let's both work all the time.
Right.
But no, it's just, I don't know. That was definitely a huge motivator, but she helped me order all the equipment and get everything lined out. She was very much so a part of getting things started and, helping me fill gaps with, I wasn't always so lucky to have the staff that I have now. The staff that we have now at the Mecca is phenomenal.
There was some.
There's you just figure things out.
You take it as a
it's the first time I had 10 employees to start out. You know what I mean? And it was that's a lot of people to manage. And at first, you're just looking people who will fill spots.
Sure.
And then.
Then you realize that doesn't really work.
Yeah, you can't do that. You know what I mean? I mean, you can. It just doesn't work
but
out.
It's not. Yes.
Yeah, it's not ideal.
It's gonna end.
It's gonna end. So she was always great helping me fill gaps and getting the whole ball rolling. She was huge help.
That's awesome. I think it's kind of beautiful, when becoming part of the team and transitioning into taking over things. Oftentimes it would logging in and stuff like that. Logins would be your logins that you created at the very beginning, and I was wow, it's started with these two, and then look where it's going. And I got hired on, and now we're expanding, and it's just been exceptional. But I think it's a beautiful thing. That's all where it started, because a kid was being born, goals were going to be had, relationships were going to be kicking ass. So I think that's super sweet. That's super sweet. I think. Let's do a couple kind of rapid fire questions. These ones just short answer that people have, but I think need to be answered. When it comes to TV shows, you guys are very busy people, but is there a show that you two love to watch it together?
Game of Thrones.
Yeah, there's been some off and on. I am, historically speaking, I've been kind of a big movie buff and stuff like that, and I think she definitely partakes.
There's some movies that he's so into that I cannot get into.
Name one.
What is that? Oh, Hidden Tiger, Crouching, whatever.
Oh, I am not. Oh, gosh.
You've got all of those that you.
I do have a lot of old martial arts
stuff,
all the old Bruce Lee stuff and stuff, and she's just.
I go right to sleep.
That's fair.
But but no, we've watched Game of Thrones. Obviously, has been a
favorite.
A favorite. We've watched some of Yellowstone. It's just I have a hard time with some of those shows because I'll get wound up and then I can't go to sleep.
That's fair.
And the only time you watch it is when you're getting ready to go to bed.
Of course, that's the only time you got.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's once in a while on the weekends we'll watch that. She was a huge Outlander fan, and I put up with it. And actually, the first couple seasons are actually pretty good. But then it just kind of drags on. What else have we watched? We watched Arrow a long time ago. That was decent at the start. That was
early, man, that got rough.
That got bad.
That got really well. Brittany and I did the same with Arrow.
We kind of
it's the first 2 or 3 seasons were
phenomenal.
Fine.
I bought a bow because of that show.
Yeah, exactly. It was bomb at first, but then what other ones?
Oh, well, we were really into Dexter.
Oh, Dexter. Yes.
Yeah,
I
that
love
was
Dexter.
Great.
I think
we
Dexter,
don't really have shows that we watch now. I mean, I'm all about Selling Sunset, and
I'll watch
love that show.
I'll watch that.
I'm sure.
Yeah,
it's right up there, in the alley of.
Yeah.
I can never wear a coat the same because the Christina just comes out, so it only goes over your shoulders.
Yeah, but no, I think we're I read quite a bit now, and it's not a fight, but that's one thing. She likes to put on a show to unwind at night because that's just how she functions. That's her personality type. Whereas I do not do that. If I put on a show at night, I'm up.
Yeah.
So you know, seeing as though I need to get up early typically, it's one of those things. She's like, you know, she's really nice about it. Like, are you okay if we watch a show? Like, I mean, she could totally go watch something on her own, but at the same time, like, we like to go to bed together and stuff like that. So
we haven't done that in a little while.
Yeah,
though.
she's pretty nice about it, but every once in a while she's like, we need to watch a show, and I'm like, okay, fine.
It's hard right now because with COVID the last year, then nothing was produced.
Tiger King, baby.
We did watch that.
You better believe we watched
Tiger King.
Oh my god.
Carol
Baskins.
I don't know. It's not the same as it was. So
no, and I think Hollywood is rebounding. Like they're coming back, and then there's shows in the pipeline that hopefully will be good. But yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
She does force me into watching The Bachelor, The Bachelorette.
Oh, absolutely! I'm all about The Bachelor and Bachelorette.
When the season's on of that, she's like,
fingers crossed, Chris Harrison comes back because we really need Chris Harrison.
Yeah. Voting for Chris.
Yeah,
right on. What is your? I think I already know the answer to this. You may have answered it, but the go-to restaurant / food to go out together.
Ahi.
Yeah, Ahi and Eagle. Huge shout out. They definitely have the best, freshest fish in town.
That's sushi.
I love Coins.
Yeah.
And Eagle as well. Coins.
Yeah. Coins.
Is phenomenal. They have the best charcuterie board you'll ever find.
Yeah, it is good. You know, past favorites. I'm all down for Blaze. Typically, pizza. That's decent. You know,
Barbacoa.
Yeah, barbacoa is good. You know, you can't beat their ahi Caesar salad. It's delicious.
And the duck
of course,
quesadilla.
the duck quesadilla. we are in.
Get us on food, and we'll just go for
Might be
another 2 hours.
Yeah, right. But
all right, let's go to the next one. You're gonna take too long.
Next one. Favorite activity to do together.
Mountain biking?
Probably mountain biking.
Although we don't really do that together because that leads to arguments of Eric likes to ride behind me because he wants to make sure I don't die.
And I like the view, let's be honest.
There's multiple reasons.
But then he gets mad at me for not riding as fast as he does. I'm sorry. I'm biologically lesser of an athlete than you are.
That is not true.
And I cannot bike as fast as you do. So.
No, it comes down to she doesn't like.
Tell me, what do I not like?
She doesn't. She doesn't like struggling and having me be back there and be like, "Come on, you can
watch
do
me
it."
struggle. I hate when people can see me struggle.
Yeah,
that's fair.
When we mountain bike, it's like when we go to new places, I'll like follow her and make sure she doesn't get lost and stuff because we'll go to some pretty backwoods type of areas. But in general, like if it's trails we know, then we just all right, meet you back here and hour and a half. We'll see you later.
But I like that. It's great because we take off and then he's gone and you don't really talk to anyone when you're mountain biking anyway because it's literally a struggle the whole way.
Yeah, I've never understood people that go on a mountain bike ride and
socialize.
Together.
And I'm like, dude, I'm about to pass out the whole time. Like, what's going on?
But it's nice to get back to the truck and then I can we're such nerds about it. He's got his Strava and he's like, "Oh, I beat all my times." And then I sometimes have Strava on, but most time I would forget to put it on. So I'd just be like, "Oh, look, I'm faster too," or "That was not fast. That was
a calming."
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, no, we like mountain biking. We like going out to eat a lot. We like skiing together.
Yeah, we ski a lot.
Skiing together is kind of a little bit more like we're
That's
together.
That's more together, yeah.
Than mountain biking because I'll go a little ways and I'll stop and I'll watch her and then catch up and then it's kind of nice because I can just I don't mind stopping and starting. Whereas if I'm biking, I'm game face on,
sure.
Get out of my way type of a situation.
You make me sound like I'm so slow. I'm not that
slow
this year.
No one's thinking you're
I'm
slow. It's just a different stuff.
No, it's just, and it's not that I'm leaving her in the dust. That's not what I'm saying. It's just I'm very focused when I do physical activity. When I lift, we don't lift together either. That usually creates a little bit of friction because I think she likes to watch me do my thing, but doing it together is not our thing.
It's really not easy. And it ends up not being a good lift.
You both feel
There's
that it
just-
wasn't quality for
Yeah.
what you guys
Yeah.
need. Yeah.
Like, I know cause I mean, you have to take off and put on so much weights.
That's
and
fair.
It's not just that. I
don't know.
end up coaching her half the time.
Yeah.
And then I end
Tells
up
me all the
accusing
things I'm
her-
doing wrong.
Well, and then I accuse her of not listening to me, which is half the truth. But anyway, so yeah, we don't.
My wife and I
do
do
that.
not live together either.
Yeah, it's like when I'm lifting or biking, like when I'm getting serious exercise in, it's just I'm not in the headspace to like, just like it's just not like the right time. And the thing is, she respects that. Skiing's something that like it's active, but I'm not like I do not consider skiing exercise. Like a lot of people are like, oh, I got my exercise, I skied. I'm like,
You went downhill.
yeah, it's like
You had a fixed speed.
yeah, like were you hiking? Were you skinning up to the top?
Right.
No.
Yeah.
So
Cross-country skiing,
so like
maybe?
skiing's more so
Hiking,
something's just
we go hiking together.
yeah, we do
and
like
that's
hiking
fun.
together.
That's a fun. I really like hiking, but it's
And
hard
she
to
can-
want to hike when you're.
Yeah,
when you
and
can't
she
bike.
definitely more than keeps up with me hiking. She does a good job with that.
Sweet.
I did drag her along hunting last year, which I'm going to continue to probably do.
But we
So-
did come to the decision because although I do enjoy nature and I enjoy intense hiking, I hate camping. And I will not
She's a
be
glamper.
camping again. It will be in a hotel room
There you go.
with a shower.
A hotel room in the shape of a sheepherder's tent.
Nope.
Nope. Right on.
Agree to disagree.
Right.
All right, next question.
The most adventurous thing or most wild thing you guys have done together.
Are you talking
like
like
Outside the
Sexually?
bedroom. we could edit it and then do a little bit of another sub series. But I'm meaning outside of like starting a gym, but like doing things together.
Oh man, I don't know.
The most adventurous?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough question. We do a lot of adventuring.
Yeah.
So, like traveling, I guess. Like we went to
Going to
Italy
Italy
a
was
couple years
super
ago.
fun.
That was
Yeah.
amazing. We want to do more traveling as soon as the world gets its shit together and opens back up.
Send him trips constantly.
Today,
that he
as a
can
matter
do.
of
I
fact.
You got
sent him
one?
one today.
She wants to go to the Maldives. I don't think she realized that that's just south of India. That's a long ways. It's a long ways away.
But it's
I mean,
gorgeous.
we are in 2021. We can fly there.
Yeah.
Don't gotta boat.
It's fine.
Yeah, I would say in the future there will be some more intense travel experiences. I don't know, like taking her hunting last year was
That was pretty
that was
adventurous,
more
right?
like honestly I wouldn't have taken like most people I know on that trip because it was brutal, but
Yeah.
I knew she could handle it, so and she did great, but like I actually almost died. She was fine.
Yeah. It's actually, yeah.
So
So I can survive a zombie apocalypse.
well,
so.
yeah, it's like, anyway, contextually speaking, that was rough. But anyway, I mean, stuff like that, like we hike, we go backcountry stuff, we've gone backpacking, we do. I mean, that kind of stuff really isn't like that adventurous per se for me, just because I grew up hanging out in the backwoods, you know what I mean? Like I know my way around in a forest type of a situation. So like that's kind of I'm kind of a, mountain person, so to speak.
Right on.
But she, I don't know, like horseback riding trips, stuff like that. Like she's all down for stuff, but I wouldn't
Down to
really,
do it, yeah.
the normal, like what people would consider being adventurous. I don't know if I even consider that adventurous. It's just something that we do,
Right. Maybe some people will. Just fun things to do. That's awesome. Okay. On a little more serious note, when shit hits the fan in life, what is kind of like the advice for people as in a relationship? How do you work together? I know it's different for a lot of people, but like for you guys specifically, how do
In
you
a relationship?
Like, I don't know, like, so I guess we don't really have
I
things hit
actually,
the fan too often.
yeah, we don't. But I do think that a lot of people, when it comes to relationships, they don't really take it the way that when you are married and you made a commitment to someone, it's not about you. Now it's about you are a servant to your spouse, and as they should be to you. And I think a lot of people forget that, and they tend to focus on what their problems are and what their issues are, and they don't remember that this is a two-way street. And right now, I know that, I mean, I know a lot of people who've had struggles just growing apart, or I don't know, big life events happen, but I feel like that's one thing that Eric's done really well with me, and I hope I've done good with him, as far as he's been a really good leader of the family, and he does show his love and support. Sometimes you have to remind each other of that like, I need this right now. And I think that it's important that people remember that they are actually, in fact, a servant to their spouse. And that's what it really comes down to when you make that commitment, is that we are in this together, and I have to acknowledge what your struggles are, even if they're not. I don't think that that's a big deal.
Right, but it is.
It is to them, and that's what's important.
Yeah, and it's like, we're both pretty stubborn, for those that don't know. So it is, I think like the foundation for, like the reason for why I do a lot of things is for, the family and setting us up for the future. And, I don't know, I guess, like you said, if we do have blowouts, it's typically speaking because we haven't spent enough time with each other. So, as soon as we talk and spend more time together, then, problems tend to really just go away, So, just having good communication skills, I think, is huge. And, the thing is, like, you have to remember in a relationship, like, especially your spouse, like, that's the person that you love most in this world. You know what I mean? Like, I put her before myself, 10 out of 10 times when it's things that, like, really matter, So I think just remembering that, that should be the case. Like, you put your family before yourself. You know what I mean? I think that, and that's kind of the mindset that I have with just going through life, is like, I'm not going to do anything that's going to be, too detrimental to us or our relationship. And at this point, like, time, because that's like our biggest issue as a married couple is just having that quality time together that we don't get a ton of. So, at this point, each and every decision that I make, it's like, well, is this going to take away from being able to spend time with her or my kids? But, I think we do a better job than most of, we both work really hard. She spends a lot of time working, and I spend a lot of time working, but we also play pretty hard too. I don't think we have an easy time just taking it easy. She's definitely better about that than I am, but like, I always have to be moving in some way, shape, or form. So we tend to work hard, but we also play really hard. And I think that's a big kind of, if you want to call it, secret to a successful relationship, is like, do things with your partner. Like, I've never understood people that like have these hobbies that are totally separate from their spouse. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of my hobbies, like, she's involved in, and if she wants to be involved in something, like, I'll go do it with her. Like, she wants to go, she likes going rock climbing, and we don't do that very often, but I'm not like horribly interested in that, just because like, it's like, I would rather like go mountain biking or something, but like,
it's good for a winter activity, I think, to do indoor, and I would love to do outdoor, but
like stuff like that I'm not super into, like, I go do it with her because she has fun with it. Like, being in a relationship is, it's all about a give and take. If your partner wants to pursue something, you just
have to be supportive or participate with them. And I think that we tend to do pretty well with that. Like, we compromise. Like, I got her in mountain biking, and that's probably one of her favorite things now.
I got you into skiing.
And yeah, she talked me into getting back into, I used to snowboard, but she talked me into going skiing. And it's just nice to like have those activities that you do together, and then it gives us excuses to, go up to, McCall or Tamarack or something for a long weekend or something like that. Like, we really try and do our best to like make time for each other. So
love that. That's fantastic. Okay, one last of these questions. What is the best part of being?
I don't know if I should say this on here.
I think everyone gets your drift.
Yep.
I don't know. Aside from that, I think just like coming home and like I look forward to going home every night, because I get to see her and the kids. I think that's, a huge advantage. I just, and people end up, finding a relationship eventually, right? But like, I feel like I would have a huge void if I didn't have like that person to go home to and to spend time with,
That is true, because he literally will not go home unless he knows I'm home.
It's true.
If I am later getting home than he is, he doesn't go home. It's very rare that he's home before I am.
Yeah, like I'm not home by myself almost ever. It just feels unproductive to me, which is probably.
It could be very productive if you would.
Well, there's always stuff that I could be getting done here, but
yeah,
I don't know. I think just the best part about being married is her. I don't know that it's being married. It's just that I just feel lucky that I found somebody, and it's not luck, but. I'm very fortunate that I have found somebody to share my life and adventures with. I just genuinely enjoy her company.
It's truly, I always look at our relationship as like we found each other and we fit perfectly. I can't imagine trying to fit with somebody else or like, I don't know. There's just everything that I like and dislike. It can match. It can fit with his. It's not necessarily we all love the exact same things, but it's very easy, really.
Yeah. I mean, we've been doing, we've been doing this whole relationship thing for like a third of our lives at this point. It's pretty scary to think, but legitimately, like over a third
almost
of our
11
lives.
year we've been together.
Yeah, so we're both 30, so it's like at this point, it's like I couldn't imagine my life without her in it. Just because it's been like I was a child when we met. You know what I mean? Like comparatively, So she's literally, been, a huge part of just my maturing, growing into an adult, becoming a man and not a snot-nosed kid, right? So it's like at this point, like I can't really imagine life any other way, it's just so natural for us, I would say, just to to have each other and to be able to rely on each other, and it's just no complaints.
Love that. Thank goodness for amazing partners. Okay, Kaycee, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I think that's all the questions. I think we hit some awesome stuff.
Nice.
Shout outs to Real Estate by Kaycee. That's what you're doing to Real Estate Wise, and exemplifying amazing power in that, being super successful. But I think it's amazing to hear from you guys, and I know the audience is going to think so too, about like a relationship that people can look up to and that they enjoy, because as individuals you both are extraordinary people, but together you make extraordinary things happen. So that's amazing to see and to witness. And so thank you again for being on. Yeah. Thanks, Eric, for marrying her and making this
Thanks for marrying me.
Thank you for joining us on the Power of Lifting podcast. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share. For more content like this, follow Eric Cafferty and the Mecca Gym on all social media platforms.